We have a quorum. Thank you very much for coming. Happy New Year. I think there's a lot of change in the wind. You look around, you see the village green, you see that apartment complex. I mean, things are moving and shaking, and we're going to be part of that. So thank you again for your participation. Guess Mayor's not available this evening.
No, sir, but thank you for asking.
Okay. Melanie, if you would, please give a roll call.
Chair Rappen,
Here.
Vice Chair Loyal,
Here.
Member Avery, Member Baker, Member Beatty, Member Boomer Schlegel. Here. Member Boren, Member Clark. Here. Member Clayton, Member Coleman. Here. Member Depler. Here. Member Helfrey. Here. Member Homan. Member Rubis.
Here.
Member Jackson.
Here.
Member Cohn.
Here.
Member McCutcheon. Here. Member Metz.
Here.
Member Pick. Member Rambo.
Here.
Member Wren.
Here.
Member Scheiken.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Scott, would you please lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
And to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice. for all. Mr. Jackson. Sir? Do we have a motion to accept last month's minutes? First, second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes. Okay. Joe, if you'd like to lead us into this evening's activities, you please give us I'd like to, every meeting start with you and a quick update on where we are and what's left. So if we could do that first, that'd be great.
Certainly. Well, before I kind of give you an overview of the progress we've made over the last year, and it has been a year. We started the last part of January 2025. You know, it's getting to be the latter part of January 2026. So we've been at it about 12 months, and I think we made good progress. In terms of where we had hoped to be by this time when we talked last year, we were thinking we might have a draft document in hand and be prepared to go out to the public, garner input from them. But I think the overarching factor that makes this department and this director me feel good is really kind of dug into a lot of tough issues. And you come back with, I think, some great solutions to those tough issues that'll carry Wildwood pretty well the next 10 years. So speed is always something that obviously we look at. The tortoise in this race. But I think quality over quantity has ruled here, and I think that's really an acknowledgement to your all's efforts. Relative to those efforts, I do want to say that we do appreciate you being here tonight. We have a quorum, so we can conduct business. So thank you very much. Also, thanks for your flexibility. If you happen to be in City Hall last night or watching on Zoom, we had a problem with our technology. Tonight, we have a problem with our technology, two different ones. There seems to have been a gentleman in the audience last night when we were talking about data centers that warned us that Meta, Microsoft, Alphabet may not like what we're saying, and all of a sudden our Zoom went off air and tonight our projector won't work. So I don't know if someone was listening, but he warned us, we didn't listen, and now we're paying the price. So thanks for your flexibility. We have coffee, soda, water, and some snacks over there. Assuming the small cupcakes came from Ms. Clark, so thank you. Always appreciated.
Thank you.
And so thank you. Just in terms of numbers, there's 6 elements in the master plan. Tonight, if all goes well, we'll start number 5. That element is recreation and open space. It is one of the shorter elements as well. So again, just a limited number of goals, objectives, and policies. Not that it's unimportant. Again, there's some core issues that we'll cover. That means we have one remaining element, and that's the economic development element, and that was added to the plan 10 years ago. So the newest of the 6 elements. Then that would leave land use component. We have now 4 letters from 4 different property owners requesting consideration by the group, changes to the conceptual land use categories, particularly the map. And those relate to properties on Valley Road, 109, Route BA, etc. So as we kind of stage those and get them ready for discussion, it'll be a little different. We actually asked those property owners, are their representatives, to present to all of you and make their pitch. I think everybody should have their day with the decision makers, not necessarily it being presented by Melanie, Travis, Robin, or I. We may bring with us a little bit of prejudice or a little bit of this or that, and you should hear from them as the salesperson and see what you think. In past years, we've always amended a few of the properties because in 10 years, things do change. And properties that once we thought weren't this or that actually are that and this. So it's kind of an interesting process. That would be collectively the 6 elements and the land use plan. I promised you all that the narratives that kind of set the stage for each of the elements will be the last thing we get to. Because obviously we are in the year process. I promised you we wouldn't take as long as we have. So I don't want to necessarily have a lot of things going on at once. We focused on the elements, the goals, objectives, and policies. We'll complete those. We'll step back, do the land use, and then launch into the narratives and some of the appendices. So that's kind of what's ahead of us as we start the new year. Certainly it's been a bit tumultuous. Obviously we started with a process that didn't seem to get us where we were going. We left behind our moderator, facilitator, and you've had to depend on actually me and others and it'll lead you through the process. And that's not how we thought it would go, but got to adapt and be flexible. And again, I appreciate you all staying with the process and helping us get to this point. So from that perspective, thank you. Questions on anything I mentioned? All right. We have an honored guest tonight, Rick Brown, PTOE, City Engineer, Floodplain Administrator, and by the way, Director of Public Works. He's here tonight because we are on the transportation element. At our last meeting at the beginning of December, we made great progress on the transportation element. Comments from the group members as well as the input from Mr. Brown, I think really kind of galvanized what we've been doing over the last 10 years in terms of improvements to a lot of our roads, bridges, streets, trails, bike lanes, and stormwater drainage that affects all of those. You see that as a common thread now due to Rick's input in many of the goals, objectives, and policies, talking about stormwater management, culverts, the things that we need to do to make our roads safe from these extreme flood events that we've been seeing. Seems like more so in the last 10 years than before. It's probably not the case, but it just seems that way to me. So tonight, there's two components to the transportation element. With Rick's assistance, and primarily Rick, we're going to go through the arterial road system. And those are the roadways that have been provided to you. So they're categorized in two ways: north, south, east, west. From the perspective of the department, like I said, I'm going to depend on Rick to kind of answer any of your questions and respond to any of the changes. But I do want to just talk real briefly why arterial roads are important. This comes back from 30 years ago. 30 years ago, the arterial roadway network was critical to all of us because in many ways, that's how you prioritize your planning, design, engineering, and funding. Seem to head toward those roads that carry the greatest amount of traffic, offer access to commercial and institutional uses, those things that are core to a community. And finally, in many ways, we want them to be safe because of those circumstances. The second is, in our zoning ordinance, oftentimes we treat businesses and institutional uses that are located along arterial roads differently in terms of signage and some of the allowances than we do elsewhere in Wildwood. And that's because on arterial roads, again, we have more traffic, higher speeds. And so the circumstances are different and necessitate a little different approach to signage and some of our other standards and requirements in the zoning ordinance. So that's why arterial roads are very important in many ways, because they are a component that we spend a lot of time talking about in terms of planning, design, engineering, and funding, both through our capital improvements program, the 5-year capital improvements plan, and now our strategic plan. Then our ordinance actually gives some accommodations to properties, businesses, uses along arterial roads. So the list, you received this on Friday. You received the full packet, so to speak, yesterday, taking a bit longer to catch up on the goals, objectives, and policies, but I knew we were starting here, so you've had this hopefully enough time. Rick, I'm gonna kind of just go through the east-west arterials. If you have some thoughts, explanations, I'm gonna defer to you. So east-west, so Clayton Road. And as part of the description, the Department of Public Works and the Department of Planning have identified them as either county, state, or city. Clayton Road is a county arterial, so retained it 30 years ago after the incorporation. State Road, Old State Road, and Ruck Road, I believe, are the only county roads that remain that are maintained by that entity. Wild Horse Creek Road, it's a combination. It's a state maintained road and a portion of Wildwood, also a city maintained road. Manchester Road, apologies to Robin, it should say parentheticals, historic Route 66. It's a Wildwood. State Route 100, it's a state maintained roadway and obviously a major arterial through Wildwood. And State Highway T, St. Albans Road, whatever flavor you prefer. I hear both. It's a state maintained roadway. Main Street in Wildwood, one of our newer roads. You drove on it probably to get here tonight. And then finally, Millrose Road, Hampton Road to State Route 100, another city street. We made some modifications to their descriptions. Much of that came from the assistance of the Department of Public Works. So tonight, we have those changes before you for conversation and discussion. And again, as promised, I'm gonna let Rick, those that have particular interest to him, or those that may need to be removed from the list, or those that may need to be added. So thank you. Mr. Doyle.
No, I don't know that I have any specific comments to add relative to these. The one thing I might mention is Manchester Road is what most people think of as Old Manchester, but it is Manchester Road from basically West Glen Farms from Route 100 where it splits. It's the old highway 100, but a lot of people call it Old Manchester. It's really Manchester Road, runs all the way out through the city limits, all the way out to basically Franklin County.
And it is, as we know, historic Route 66, the original location. So as you see all those signs as you travel from downtown St. Louis out here, you see here, Route 66 here, Route 66 there, here, there, everywhere. We have the original location where it all started.
I have a question. If from your perspective, Mr. Brown, is there any thought on changes to the list on who owns what? And is it even feasible to make a change if we thought it would be beneficial to the city?
Well, I can't say that there's been any recent discussion about transfer of roads either from the city to the county or the state or vice versa. Usually it's easy to give away a road. It's not very easy to find people to take them. So usually when that occurs, it's been my experience that it's more of a transfer where agencies agree, I'll take this off your hands if you take this off of my hands. And it evens the playing field in that process. So if one person, one entity doesn't lose in the process.
So what's your perspective that you would not recommend any changes to who owns what today?
Not in the general sense, no. There are areas on Route 100 that could be debated in terms of MoDOT currently maintains them. Would it be better for the city to maintain them? And I'm talking about old remnants of connections, those kind of things. I could see an argument that the city take them over ultimately, because MoDOT tends to ignore them. They don't make them a priority, and sometimes the maintenance can lapse. You know, the biggest issue I think all of us have is agencies, our budgets are limited, they're constrained. So you know, maybe there's a road like Route BA, for example, that I could see being a city roadway. I don't know that's gonna happen. I don't know that we really want to take that on either, because it would be a significant impact from a maintenance standpoint, long-term. Old State Road would be another one where in some respects, there are folks that would say we should maintain Old State Road because they don't like the amount of truck traffic on it. Say. And they feel we can discourage that practice. Well, the county has the contrary view on that. They see it as an important arterial road from their perspective. They really want to keep it open. They think that generally speaking, trucks should have access to it. So I guess the short answer is I don't know of any in particular right now.
Rick, when you were just mentioning 109 and BA, so 109 is state, what is BA?
It's state as well.
So they'll maintain that roundabout?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mentioned I've got a track, but 100, that section of Truman Road, right there at Route 100 is another example. MoDOT maintains that short section of road. And it's probably a section that, if anything, the city should take on. Now it's theirs, it's in their system. I don't know if they would entertain the city taking it over or not. But you could make an argument that we should probably maintain it.
Take over what?
The section of Truman Road right there at West Glen Farms.
Oh, yeah.
Teresa?
I'm confused. Why does 100 stop at T?
The two, like, the three, the dual lanes.
Three lanes. But where does it talk about the rest of?
You could probably add a little more clarity there because the 4-lane stops at State Highway T, but it actually continues as a 2-lane through to the county line. So I could see that being a change they make.
One other question, on Wild Horse Creek Road, where exactly is it that it's a state road and not a state and a wild?
Basically, the new roundabout that was constructed this year, everything, say to the east of there, is it east or north? Towards Chesterfield Valley, that is all
Yeah.
Route CC, Wild Horse Creek Road, it's all state maintained. And the other direction is the city of Wildwood.
Okay.
Michael?
I don't know if this is where we should bring these items up, but on Clayton Road, I was wondering about parking the state into putting left turn lanes at the Hope Montessori, Prospector Ridge and Thunderhead Canyon. I don't know if there's enough room to do that, but in the afternoon, people waiting to turn in there during rush hour traffic can cause quite a delay.
Mr. Rain, could you, I got at the Montessori School.
Montessori, Prospector Ridge, and then Thunderhead Canyon.
Okay, thank you.
Those are 3 choke points if you're trying to head west on Clayton Road in the late afternoon.
Centaur City? Centaur Road is a city roadway, that's correct. I don't know that it's on our list, yeah.
Again, just remember, we've defined these as arterials, there's collectors, local residential streets. So really, the master plan is focused on arterials. So a lot of our streets that you may drive on aren't on this list, but it's still, they're city streets.
Who maintains 109 going down the hill past Wild Horse Creek, going towards
Yeah.
Centaur?
That's south.
Is that the city?
South
Yeah.
Etherton.
That is South Etherton. I think we referenced it on the list,
That's
but
state?
that is actually St. Louis County.
That's St. Louis County, okay.
So it's
It
confusing.
makes sense, yeah, I mean, it's like,
Jim?
That was the same question.
So let me rephrase my question. Is there anything that this group feels strongly enough about that we would either want to recommend we take over, or it makes significant more sense that we lobby the state to take it back? And should we put it in a plan if we think there is such?
Before to get back to Mr. Rain's comment, I think within the last 6 months, Mr. Brown and Mr. Lee, our city administrator, we're trying to get some repairs done in the vicinity of Windcrest subdivision on Clayton Road. And I think they were near pulling their hair out because there was an obvious need, but St. Louis County just wouldn't prioritize it. Or it's basically the answer we get most of the time, there's no funding for it. So suffice to say, we could certainly ask, but I think I know the answer. And there's also a potential issue there with Clayton Road, given its width. So you have sidewalks on each side, you have the tree lawn area, and then you have pine shoulder, then the 2 drive lanes. Be afraid that we might have to push into people's yards if we were to do something.
Yeah, I don't know if there's enough room to reline it, but at times, waiting for a left turner, people will pass you on the shoulder. There's actually room to make it happen, but is it safe? You know, that's the other question.
Well, what we can do is at least we'll talk about it internally and see if there's an approach we can take. whether it starts with Mark Harder, our county council member for District 7, which we start with the Streeter, the director of the Department of Transportation and Public Works. We can at least find out if they have any plans. How's that?
It's just a thought, and I don't know if this is the proper place to bring up ideas like that.
If that were to happen, I think the time to consider it would be when they finally get around to resurfacing that road, and we haven't gotten a commitment out of the county as to when that's gonna happen. Clearly, it's needed. That idea has been suggested, but I think what Joe referenced is without widening the road into people's yards, you have to take away the shoulder, which people use for parking right now. So it's likely not to be over very highly with the local people who live on the road.
Right.
But there's certainly a case to be made for the need for it. Likely, if you really looked at the crash history on the road, at least at Thunderhead Canyon, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw pretty strong pattern of rear end crashes and things like that, that can be eliminated potentially. So, you know, the county could incorporate that into their work on that improvement project, and at least evaluate that. I think that would be the starting point.
Cool, thank you.
I have two things. One is about Strecker, so I mentioned that so I don't forget it. What, who makes the decisions for the streetlights, and I mean the signals and the safety signs? Is it the person who owns the street, city or county? Is that who determines? And the reason I ask is because, you know, they've made MoDOT or whoever did 109 in Clayton really made a cluster of the lights. It took them about 20 years to get the timing right, and when they put in the new fixtures, they screwed the timing up again. So I was just curious, who is it? If you own the road, you're in charge of the signs and stuff too?
Yep.
So, okay. And then my next question is about Strecker Road. In this, it said pretty basically, it was just drainage, and I think, oh, here we go, I'm sorry. Limit any improvements to topical safety and drainage. And so my question is, I know that there's a part of Strecker Road that is pretty close to the edge of where the creek comes by. And so if we just put this in here like this, does that limit us, or should we put that in here? Address any issues that have to do with the erosion.
Well, we could be more specific, although we do say drainage, which I think you could probably stretch it to that.
Yeah, I'm not trying to hamstring anybody. I'm just curious. Thank you.
Well, from the perspective of the department, the addition by Public Works of inclusion of drainage and sidewalk improvements does address a couple of the critical points that we've been looking at for years on Strecker Road, some up by Wildwood Meadows, which is on the north end, and then some down by the mosque and some of the other properties in the general vicinity. So we look at being more specific. And certainly I would offer, if you know those locations where there are problems, if you want to take a photo and send it to us, that helps.
Well, I don't think there's a problem now, but I know that it's been talked about for years, and you know, when you drive that, you can kind of see how close it's all gotten. That's the only reason I asked.
Yes, and you know, that as we know, Cox Creek is just, you know, it's the relative you hope that doesn't show up at Christmas. But they're always there. So, but like I say, take a look at it. I mean, I think Public Works improved the description vastly by the additions. But if we need to be more specific and identify potential locations, we can do that. Certainly.
I'll leave it to you to decide that. Sure, absolutely.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Didn't want to leave you hanging. So again, I think Chair's question is, are there things that need to switch control, state, county, city, or vice versa? There arterials, are there roadways that should be arterials in your mind, knowing that the definition was provided of what constitutes an arterial roadway? are there ones on here that probably shouldn't be arterial? Because like in the case of Milrose, and I'm not advocating this was done years ago by people a lot more experienced and smarter than me. It is a rural road for all intents and purposes. In some sections of it, it's very windy, goes through Rockwood's Reservation, etc. So is it? Years ago, we had a sinkhole farm on it. It was a real challenge for everybody, particularly Public Works.
Thunderhead Canyon seems to be a major thoroughfare between Clayton and Manchester. Same way Old Fairway is between Old State and Manchester. Is there any consideration of putting Old Fairway on that list of watching out for the future? Because as more and more homes are being built, the traffic is gonna, I know from the time that I've been driving on Old Fairway to make a left turn onto Bountiful Point Circle, I never am able to just go and make a left turn. I'm always, say in the morning, in the afternoon, it just seems like that street is really picking up a lot of traffic. Not sure why, but it's not school traffic.
I can see an argument for adding Old Fairway. It would be somewhat consistent like we have Thunderhead Canyon and Lakeland Farm. They are more of the collector roads that we have, they would be the higher, that would be one of the higher volume.
Bevel View takes a lot of traffic. Bevel View Drive takes up a lot of through traffic, not just the residents.
So, Mr. Rubus, I know you live along Old Fairway Drive, so you know it much more intimately than I, but in terms of the design, as you know, no residential home has direct access to it with their driveway. And it's a vertical curb and it's intended to basically circulate traffic from the homes onto the residential streets, then to Old Fairway Drive. Can't say that for Thunderhead Canyon. And I don't know if making that an arterial is going to do anything other than ultimately upset the property owners along it. But I don't know if there's anything we could do to improve it.
You're talking about Old Fairway?
Thunderhead.
Right, well, that's,
It's also a deer refuge.
We had a plan for that.
Yeah, do we? The best laid plans.
Yeah, my question was just the designation of an arterial, and we're talking about like Old Fairway, that's really low speed limit. And it's still, we're considering making it more of an arterial. And I guess this is a convoluted question, but I was thinking about Melrose. I can't see why that's an arterial, and if you're looking for some suggestion to take it out of the arterial list, I would certainly support that, because it's really twisted and convoluted and lots of sort of blind corners where people's homes, driveways dump right out on the road and so forth. And I can't see, without removing a whole lot of the character of that road, making it any safer or faster. And I don't think there's much traffic on it. So I'm just kind of making the case for removing it. You haven't really asked specifically whether you want people to provide recommendations to take them off the list.
I think that's what Chair Rump was getting at, is something misclassified? Is something not classified? And certainly, I think this is the time to talk about it.
So what do we do? Make a motion, or I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm trying to provide that service if you're looking for a motion.
Please.
I believe we have Melrose only from Allenton to State Route 100 included, so the remainder of Melrose would not be. So it's not the entirety of Melrose.
Was not hurting my feelings any. It just seems like there's no traffic on that road and why call it an arterial? I don't know, but the classification, it seems meaningless. We don't do anything, we're not considering doing anything to Melrose Road, so.
Well, it's consistent with the fact that we have Allenton Road listed as well. So
Okay, but it's easier, that's a straighter road, don't you think? I mean, Allenton seems like it's more of an arterial because there's actually trucks on it and it goes a little faster and.
so it's Allenton all the way up to Melrose and then Melrose up to 100. So that whole corridor is essentially the arterial.
Okay.
The remainder of Melrose is not considered.
Streets and
So to determine this, do you have like the county has their blueprint for arterials and goes through the flow chart of and gives all the criteria to determine what is an arterial or not? Do we have that? And do we have like a map that would show all of them, maybe color coded with state, county and Wildwood so that it's easy to point out to people?
I can answer the last one. We do have a map. Melanie provided one to me a while back. It's hanging on my wall, so we'll get you a copy of that.
Could we link it into this
Certainly,
master plan?
yes.
Yeah, so on Taylor Road, are you talking about all the way from Manchester around to 109? Or just a portion of that?
I would take it to be Taylor Road in its entirety, which would be Manchester up to Route 109, yes. Yeah. Which in. I guess that's part of my, well, never mind.
I think we have to answer that question.
I was gonna piggyback, don't worry.
Ms. McCutcheon, as you know, when we did the extension of Taylor Road through the villages at Brightleaf, we upgraded the construction specification in terms of the roadway surface itself. We added the roundabouts, the speed humps at the pedestrian crossings. We did a lot of things to ensure that it isn't intended to carry a whole lot of traffic, but what traffic it does it safely and manages speed.
Do you know how much traffic it's
Taylor itself, I could look it up, but it varies. The section Taylor out here is actually pretty heavily traveled, one of the higher volume, if not the highest volume city route that we have, roadways we have.
it lessens as you go across 100, right?
It would be less on the north side. It's been a while since I recall checking that number, but I want to say we're close to 8,000 vehicles a day on this section out here. It's probably more 2,000 to 4,000 on the other side per day, cars per day.
That's fixing to change though, right, with the construction.
definition. Major transportation.
There in the corner.
Well, of course, traffic volumes vary, so they're not consistent necessarily the whole segment of the roadway, so they'll be higher at the signals or at either end typically. Yes, as we build, as we add development, the volumes do increase as well, so.
Yeah. You know, and I'm not exactly certain the benefit or burden of reclassification, but just in looking at the definition, it would appear to me, like Jim mentioned, that Old Fairway would fit into the category of being an arterial road. And we're looking to make an addition or not. I mean, that seems like the most logical. It does get a lot of traffic going through it.
Eventually, that can be done by a motion and second and voice vote. Yeah.
Does it do anything other than changing the classification of it as far as cost of the city?
Well, again, as I say, arterials are usually the first roadways that are discussed when we talk about future planning, design, engineering, and funding. So yes, it does change it from that perspective. And then in terms of a regulatory process, when we do zonings along arterials, we treat them differently. I mentioned signage, but it's also in terms of setbacks, et cetera. Because a higher volume
No
road,
removal.
higher volume roads make more noise, so we want greater setbacks in certain instances.
You know, in the Board of Public Safety, we made a policy or procedure this year classifying the priority in snow removal and ice treatment.
And where do the arterials fit in to that schedule, Rick? I don't remember. Is it?
Well, so that is definitely a part of the response that we develop for snow removal, prioritize streets based on their function or their classification. So yeah, the higher arterial roadways were the highest in terms of our response. But we also had a secondary level street, which was more of a collector roadway. A lot of those were residential streets.
Where does
They weren't
Old
through-
Fairway fit into that now? Do you recall?
I'd have to look it up, but it would clearly either be our top or our.
Yeah, it seems like it would probably fit the classification for, at least within snow removal and ice treatment, kind of in the arterial.
It certainly would in my mind, yeah.
I would like,
Yeah, I said a lot before and didn't get my question out, but Vince, I'm gonna take a run at what you said and try to do better. You were looking up arterial definitions. I'm looking for something that's real simple, like it's cars per day, and some factor of the speed limit or something like that. Or is it just PTOE magic and we'll never get past that? Or can we just define a road as an arterial based on the traffic and the speed limit? Is it that simple or not?
Well, I think these were developed quite a while ago with the master plan, so I can't really speak. Joe would be better to speak maybe about how they originated, but the way I look at it, it is more, if you look at our city and you look at our system of roads, typically when you classify roads, you start with arterial routes, and those are the main roads that connect large cities to other cities, or from Wildwood's perspective, you might go from city limit to city limit, either north and south and north, east or west. So
Can Rick Brown write an easy description of arterials, et cetera, that goes in the master plan that helps us, sort of cut through the noise and be able to think about this in a sort of quantifiable term? Is that possible?
I
Or
think that's possible, yes.
okay, great. Do I need to make a motion, or are you good? Go ahead.
But I would also say we probably should give a definition of collector, local, so you have all three. So
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy. I just want him to do his magic and we'll have it in the master plan and we don't have to, ponder it.
we're keeping track of what we need to motion. Ms. Clark.
Well, that was, the first part of my question before was, do we have that already? Do we have a blueprint for arterials like the county has? And it goes through and it tells, here's all the things that would make up an arterial. And then those are broken down into, how each one of them relates. So, that would be what I would ask for too, what Rob said. That's what I was asking for before, so that we know we're not just basing on, well, I think it should be because I want, wider streets, or I think it should be because of this or that, safety issues. If we had like the whole list of criteria that has to be looked at, I think it'd be easier to recognize which one should be and which one shouldn't be.
Do you need a motion?
So again, just to kind of give a little background to what Rick had mentioned. The gentleman that assisted the initial development of the master plan relative to transportation was a consultant out of Florida named Walter Kulash. He had worked a great deal with Dewani, he had worked a great deal with Jonathan Barnett, the two planners, national planners we engaged. And so, again, my recollection is the first things we looked at were traffic volumes and then crash histories, which told us to reinforce the traffic volumes, because usually the more accidents you have, the greater number of vehicles are on the road. At least that's what I was told. Also, when we were talking, there was a strategic component of this, because there was a concern that St. Louis County would backtrack and start designating some of our streets arterials, because they have that authority. They can make a street an arterial. And so the idea is we'd beat them to the punch. Would that help and forestall it? I don't know. But there was some strategic, remember context 30 years ago, we were coming out of Supreme Court cases that allowed the incorporation to go to the residents. Then there was another lawsuit by the county administration to basically forestall it. And so once they were free of St. Louis County, a lot of the incorporators wanted to guarantee that the things that they fought so hard for wouldn't necessarily be easily taken away.
So we have some potential motions.
Yes.
On the table. But do we need to wait for Rick's definitions before we throw out potential streets?
I think one of the
Or we're
motions
going
is
to
to
have
get the
and do that
definitions
first.
and make them a part of the master plan, whether as an appendix or in the element itself as a narrative.
Just an additional comment, I'm not sure that the consultants from Florida, which tops out at 200 feet of elevation above sea level, was considering our Ozark type of Melrose roads in the assessment of the accident history and so forth. And so that needs to be part of Rick's magic and making it as simple and streamlined as possible, because we want the roads to be safe ultimately. And we want to accommodate the traffic. Those are the two things. So if that makes sense as a motion, Scott was chomping at the bit to make a motion too, but
No, I wasn't. I was just asking, where are we back to the motion and?
okay, yeah, so my motion would be to ask Rick to bring back a draft of the definitions of the various classes of roads and, the specifications for each.
A second. All in favor?
I,
Go. All opposed? Motion passes.
Just my primitive understanding of what an arterial road would be, would they go somewhere, kind of, Old Fairway goes from Old State to Manchester Road. What about Pond Road? It goes two places in Wildwood. It goes up VA and then 100. I know, I like cutting through it.
I wanna choose it.
I'm going, I'm taking my trailer to Babbler. It's great. I just get off 109. I mean, it just seems like it goes somewhere.
Brown, can we look at that?
It's a shortcut.
Well, it could certainly be, part of this reevaluation, should Pond Road be on there? Not, we could certainly look at.
And we'll have definition, go. Okay. Vicky,
I just have one point of clarification. We're asking for a definition of arterial roads and then what other road collectors?
It would be arterial collector and local.
So there's three types of roads we're looking for. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So are we taking any motions to add like Old Fairway? Are we taking it?
That's
Okay.
Yep. There's a consensus, and even Mr. Brown mentioned he thought met the criteria.
I thought that we said that we were gonna wait until he came back with the definition. Yeah.
It's gonna be part of it.
that
Sorry.
would be my recommendation. Go ahead. We'll review it again. Can you have that for next meeting?
That's just next week.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's a paragraph.
Okay.
Yeah, we already have. We already have.
Oh, really?
You could see.
Exactly.
Well, again, through the east-west arterials, there's another set, there's the north-south. We talked about a lot about them. Rick brought up Allenton Road, which is a Wildwood Street, Fox Creek Road, which is a Wildwood Street, Old State Road, County, Fort Wild Horse Creek Road, that's a Wildwood, State Route 109, obviously, State, Strecker Road, mentioned by Ms. Helfrey, Shepherd Road, Thunderhead Canyon and West Glen Farms Drive are part of the arterial system. It's a strategic move. Valley Road, which we are about to resurface and make improvements to, and then finally Taylor Road, which Ms. McCutcheon brought up. So we do have, again, two categories, north, south, east, west arterials.
County road or? Wow.
City.
Okay.
So
Depending upon Rick's input, some of these may drop off as well. And we really can't necessarily decide that until we have a definition.
Yeah, and again, 30 years is a long time. Rick keeps up with all of the classifications, so yeah, there may be some ones that'll come back for consideration, some. But what you've all mentioned so far is Thunderhead Canyon Drive, and that is an arterial on our south category. Old Fairway Drive, Babbler View Drive. We talked about Milrose, but that's a limited section. And then Pond Road was the last of those. If I missed any that need
Would
to
it
be,
help to have, to see this all on a map? I mean, if you're coming back,
yeah.
Rick's not gonna come anymore. if I
Actually,
keep you
we
more work.
have the map developed already, which also shows all the private streets in the city, so we'll get that to you. Hopefully Melanie has time tomorrow.
Now, why are we considering Babbler as an arterial? It doesn't go to two main.
Again, it was just one that was mentioned. We'll put it through the analysis and that way we can basically respond to Mr. Ray's comment. Yeah, just by the fact that we mentioned it doesn't mean it's gonna end up being classified as an arterial. But at least we can answer the question why it wouldn't be.
My dog and I consider that a very busy street.
Write that down. I think that might be part of the criteria.
Yes.
Maybe we should have a new category, busy street.
Busy streets with walkers and dogs. So again, arterials we've carried those over through two updates. Obviously, we're talking about continuing it forward for this update, but it sounds like we want to basically take a little bit of a harder look at the definition and see if we've got things here that don't need to be here and things that we might have missed in the last 30 years. And you've given us some suggestions. I think between the four of us planners, we've gotten them all, and will depend on Rick and his team to help us figure it all out.
I have a question. Is there any consideration for a roundabout at Manchester and 109? Or what we call 100 or Old Manchester, I'm not sure.
Oh.
Because coming,
From the station, the
Yeah,
old
because-
fire station.
because coming out there to get onto 109, quite often you sit there and you don't see another car for a couple minutes until you get a green light.
Actually, the original town center plan had a roundabout there.
I know, yeah.
Remember, Missouri Department of Transportation wasn't necessarily ready to move forward with an endorsement of roundabouts, but
Well, what's one more?
They're in vogue now.
I think the
$1 million.
town center did identify that intersection likely is going to need some capacity enhancements in the future. Potentially adding turn lanes or additional through lanes on 109 south through to New College Avenue. So I think that was one of the areas that was flagged as a potential need in the future. I don't know that we say it specifically in the master plan. We could, I suppose.
and one that city council has been talking about, at least at committee level, is Ridge Road and Old State Road doing a roundabout there as well. Old State does not have any traffic control at Ridge Road, so those on Ridge Road can sit there during peak hours for extended period of time.
For both those, is that intersection under Wildwood's control?
Well, no, it's in Ellisville and it's St. Louis County. Noted yesterday, Rick, maybe a little tip of it touches the edge of Wildwood there at Vintage Grove, I think is the name of the subdivision. But it's one that the certain council people in that particular area have talked about as a safety enhancement. And we ought to put it on the list at least.
Well, we do state that under the Old State Road, that the new roundabouts at Ridge Road and Old Fairway Drive.
Thank you.
But if it's not in the city, other than doesn't that create in and of itself some challenges? Yeah, the answer would be yes, Vince.
Is negotiation.
Well, I mean, and even aside from that, being those, why would I want to spend Wildwood's money on Ellis's roads? Okay, it was said.
There you go.
The reasons why. That's why not.
Yeah.
Now, part of what we've talked about as we've gone through the different elements is kind of this philosophy. Wildwood first. We've done a lot of major, the state arterials. We've spent some money on Old State Road, a county arterial. Focus, I believe, has shifted a bit with Mayor Garitano, and we're looking at extending Main Street improvements to Etherton Road as part of town center and some other things in Old Street. And as part of our discussion of some of the elements, we have identified Wildwood first as a philosophy we need to employ in at least in the next 10-year period. So makes that roundabout at Ridge Road and Old State Road.
Kind of like Greenland.
I just have a curious question that's really not what we're talking about. Why do we have so many Etherton roads? I mean, it's hard to even decide which Etherton you're talking about.
Joe was here when they were all
The
made.
original road was Etherton Road, right?
Yeah, it was just other, it was just, yeah,
just
there
remnants
wasn't
of the
anything
original
else, and then they
highway.
put they made 109 and cut across the snaking of Etherton. And I remember it when it happened, some of it at least, and so they just cut across, and so they made this part of Etherton, they made this part of Etherton, this part of Etherton, and this part of Etherton. It was all the same road, it just got bisected by the upgraded 109 and a couple other projects.
Yeah, and then where it says that sign 109 in Etherton, I don't understand that either. Why is Etherton on that sign?
I don't believe it is anymore.
Oh, good.
I think with the resurfacing project, the new sign got rid of it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was confusing, I think.
There's probably 4 different sections or 5 different sections.
We have a number of them that are either Etherton or old
Yeah,
Etherton,
yeah.
and even us internally get confused, frankly. Maybe there's a better way to address it, but yeah,
Is
there's.
there a way to rename them?
Part
It's-
1, part 2.
I don't know, maybe there is, it's never really.
South Ford, North Ford, others.
Renaming streets is difficult.
It is difficult, yeah.
It involves the postal service, the residents that live along it. It's just a whole lot of, because residents obviously have everything tied to an address, and then they've got to contact the banks, the credit card companies, this, that, and the other. So
Back to the task at hand, I think the additional information can make an informed decision.
Would Rockport be considered an arterial?
Well, it's actually on the list currently, I believe that's
Uh-uh.
right.
Did I say Orville? Orville. Oh, Orville. Orville is what I'm talking about.
Guess we could certainly reevaluate Orville. I don't know that I would be quick to suggest it, but we could certainly revisit that one.
Meeker?
Ricker would be another one that, I mean, those are probably both narrower roads. I'm sure the traffic volumes are less. Based on their connectivity, they probably wouldn't quite be high enough to be considered an arterial roadway, but we can reevaluate them. Yeah.
Meeker's getting busier.
I've added that to the list. Any other thoughts on the 2 list? Arterial streets? Rick, you're gonna be busy.
You tell my boss I got lots to do. Didn't expect to get homework. Okay.
See him on Zoom from this point forward.
Take a good look.
So. Again, if you think of anything relative to the list of streets, comments that were made about the classifications and definitions and any other items that were discussed during this part of our meeting, please just send them to us, Melanie, Travis, Robin, and I, and we'll make sure Rick gets them, and then we'll try to address them as best we can. As Mr. Chair Rout mentioned, our next meeting is just a week away, so I wouldn't promise you anything, any miracles in terms of responses. But we'll certainly be prepared, if not for that meeting, the next one that we have scheduled in February. The second component of the transportation element is the goals, objectives, and policies. And again, I'm gonna put a little bit of an excuse here. If you haven't driven around Wildwood environs, particularly here in town center, you might have noticed that we have a lot of development underway, an apartment complex, 180 units, the reserve, single family dwellings, 115, Ashley Grove, 11, the point at Brightleaf, 30. And this kind of goes on. We've got large lot, single family subdivisions out at Route T and Route 100, on Christie Road, south of Manchester Road. And it seems like every business in town realized that we changed our sign regulations and want new signs. So we got this late, is what I'm saying, because we're kind of swamped with a lot of what we're doing right now. Robin and not so much me, we're looking at the draft of the historic preservation plan so we can get it to the Historic Preservation Commission. You know, timelines with the State Historic Preservation Office. So I apologize. You got it yesterday. It wasn't what I had hoped, but so what I'm going to say is, I know you haven't had a great deal of time to review it. And like I mentioned with the last element, if you have comments, please send them to me. We'll catch back up with them. I promise you, we're not going to ask you to do something, then ignore it when you do it. I just want to again just mention that it was a little late getting to you. And so from that perspective, please feel free to go over it, particularly between now and our next meeting. Certainly then if you want, you can bring your comments. We can accept those comments. And if there's something that's really important to you, we'll certainly have time to discuss them next Wednesday. So. And I wasn't necessarily planning on spending a great deal of time on that because I'd really like to get to the next element, which is one that's near and dear to my heart, open space and recreation. So again, the process isn't what you thought it was and delay in getting information to you, please. Falls on the director, that's me. And again, we're doing the best we can and we continue to strive to do that. So thank you. Open space and recreation. Just a couple quick things about it. Little bit of a story. So on September 1st, 1995, at noon, at 10 a.m., there was a group of us out at Babbler State Park in the shadow of Dr. Babbler's statue. And there was a group of the appointed council members, the appointed mayor. And one of them came up to me and said, oh, by the way, you're also the director of parks. Hired as the director of planning. I said, well, you realize I've never done this. So don't worry about it. We'll never have a park. So from that point forward, things changed. So just a little bit of trivia, if you ever get asked, how we got here. So first and foremost, our first master plan did contain this element, open space and recreation. I think you'll see a lot about preserving and protecting existing public spaces like Babbler State Park, Rockwood's Reservation, Rockwood's Range, Greensfelder County Park, etc. However, once we became a city, first thing we did in terms of open space and recreation is we applied for a grant in 1996 to the Missouri, through East-West Gateway Council of Governments, to build a trail segment 109 from Route 100 to Clayton Road. That's a small segment. It's on the east side, but that was the first trail segment that was constructed in Waldron. And it wouldn't have been constructed without the assistance of one person in the room. At that time, Mr. Brown was the area engineer for the Southwest District of Missouri Department of Transportation. And we needed right of way. Mr. Brown wrote a short letter, one page, and said, "You sure can."
Really quit MoDOT thereafter.
It was his parting shot. It was a great one because most of our Greenway corridor is in state right of way. So without the assistance of Mr. Brown in another capacity and a generous East-West Gateway Council of Governments, who knows if we would have had a trail system. But that's our first segment, Route 100 to Clayton Road, east side of Route 109. And from there, it just kind of started snowballing. So we have parks, we have trails, we have passive spaces, we have active spaces. And for the most part, we'd like to think it's a nice mix of neighborhood and community type parks. The element itself, as I mentioned, is one of the shorter ones, 3 goals, 4 objectives, 8 policies. And it has again been part of the plan since 1996.
I was just wondering do we know how much, like, how many miles of trail system we have within Wildwood? What percentage of Wildwood is parks? And that I would include Greensfelder and Babler and things like that. I don't think people realize what we have here as far as parks and the cost of maintaining that.
Well, I'll argue cost of maintenance till I'm blue in the face and I pass out and die. But we spend about $500,000 a year on park trail maintenance. Some of the trail maintenance is done by Public Works because it's in adjacent right of way. Some isn't because maintaining the trail, it's just as easy for us to basically maintain the right of way next to it. So it's a cooperative effort, and we both benefit from it. But I would argue at $500,000, which is a great deal of money. It's a very good bargain for the buck. And we do a lot to ensure our parks are clean, safe, and meet the requirements of the oversight agencies in terms of all of the components and monthly inspections and repairs. So it's a little bit of a sore subject because pretty much every month I hear how much we're spending on parks and trails and we need to cut back. In fact, at a meeting, I believe in November, of the Planning and Parks Committee, they passed a motion to put a 5-year moratorium on any new parks that are trails. And so this means we're doing a 10-year plan, first 5 years. We're just doing what we're doing.
Do you know as far as acreages, how much acreage?
In terms of paved trail surface, I think we're somewhere around 14 or 15 miles. So that's the trail surfaces on either side of Route 100, portions on Route 109, in your subdivision, the enclaves, Cherry Hills, etc. Collectively, we do have a map that shows all of the trails, both in the state, county, and city parks, plus the trail systems we've constructed in right-of-way, et cetera. And it's well over 125 miles.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's pretty.
Brenda,
So
Deborah,
Well, I don't mean to interrupt. I guess we're gonna get to the policies and stuff, right? And I'll just wait till you're here.
So
Is that where the moratorium and policies, or is it here?
it's not, it was done without the benefit of a memorandum being prepared. It was done under miscellaneous on the agenda. And
So
much of an
did
explanation.
council-
I will say that one person in the room didn't support it. Ms.
Well,
McCutcheon?
Yeah.
Quick question, is there a reason why the trail doesn't extend on the west side of 109, going from like Lafayette Trails, going past towards Pasiglia and going past where other side of Babbler, when the trail on the east side goes all the way, connects to Garden Ridge, but on the other side, there's no trails whatsoever? Does it not, it doesn't connect to BA, you can't go from BA, walk down that way, you can't come out of Lafayette Trails, make a left, go up towards Pasiglia, there's no trails there. Is there a reason that it's only on one side and not the other? Is it just intended that way, or is this just that was a?
Well, I guess the answer is we've identified, initially was constructing it on the east side, and mostly that was done through a combination of grants and city funds. Some of the sections on the west side, like, I guess maybe have been envisioned to be completed with development of the adjacent properties, which has not yet occurred.
So like Lafayette Trails, which is the 6 lot, large lot subdivision across from Lafayette High School, we required that developer to build that.
Where the sidewalk is there and then it ends, yeah.
And so we skip Pasiglia, we kind of pick up the trail near St. Albanville Catholic Church. Then we basically, on our trail maps, we'll show you going down Old Etherton Road as the connection to Route BA. So it's a city street.
Okay.
It's a low volume street. So what we ended up doing is we kind of cobbled together sections of trail, as Mr. Brown mentioned, that the development community constructed, existing low volume streets. And then we did do a small trail segment that's going to be removed as part of the roundabout construction of Route 109 and Route BA. It had a vertical curb, and then the trail was right next to it that took you to BA. Years ago, I don't know, Rick, if you were here, but we actually worked in conjunction with Missouri Department of Transportation, and we widened both sides, both shoulders on both sides of Route BA and striped them with a solid white, so as that could be a bike lane or. Yeah.
And then what about going on 100 going towards Pond, where it basically dead ends? Like you can come out of the park, and when you come out of the park, there's no trail. It doesn't go west any further, and the same on the left side, it doesn't go west towards Pond. It just stops.
Yeah, on the north side, out of Community Park, we actually have a set of engineered plans that have been approved by the Missouri Department of Transportation. This is years ago. It actually takes us out to Wild Horse Creek Road.
Okay.
It's always been a victim of budget cuts. On the south side, we do have a trail system that goes out to Pond. Living Word Church built a trail segment down to Higher Focus, that photography studio, and kind of dead ends there. We didn't have enough room to build a trail in front of Higher Focus without basically putting it up next to the building itself, those two old historic buildings. So we've kind of been cobbling it all together. As you get further and further west, though, we haven't been able to basically follow our plan, which is to build trails to get eventually to Greensfelder County Park.
Okay.
And that'll be somebody, I'll be pushing daisies by that time.
Yes, I have a question. On this trail thing, the cooperative trail that was recently approved or adopted along Old State Road, does that fall out? Is that a sidewalk versus a trail? Or how does that fall out? Did that predate the decision not to make any new ones?
I think that's fair to say that it did, and we did get federal funds for that project, so it's funded 20% by the city, 80% by the federal government. It's a trail, it's a shared use path, multi-use path, not a sidewalk.
So if circumstances like that became available, would that be outside of the moratorium?
Well, maybe I was a little harsh, but they said yes, that if something came along that was a key component of a trail or property became available, that was just, something that would be a once in a lifetime opportunity, I could bring it back to the committee and city council on a case-by-case basis. But in terms of planning for the future, I've been told not to do that per se.
So Planning and Parks adopted the moratorium. Did council approve it then? Or was it just?
Received the report. They will have the report in February.
Can you hold off on that?
No, I mean, this committee in theory could recommend that that's not the case.
Well, you certainly could, and that wasn't my intent.
No, I understand.
I was just expressing a little frustration in that, no offense meant, Rick, but we spend $3.6 million or so on road and bridge and maintenance, and we spend $500,000 on park and trails.
And what you spend on a roundabout?
Well, that's part of, and I'm not criticizing people.
I know, I'm just saying.
Safety first, but let's put it in context and, you know, quit telling the four of us that work in the Department of Planning and Parks that we don't track our dollars. We spend them judiciously, and we spend them to keep kids safe when they're on the playground equipment or when they're driving on the park roads or parking in the parking lot or using the restrooms. But like I say, it's a real sore subject right now.
So that's for 5 years.
Yes.
And that's where we're at right now. So, but the planning, shouldn't we still be planning for after that 5 years?
Absolutely, and that's why you have the goals, objectives, and policies before you, because regardless, as we know, elections change directions as well. And so from that perspective, there may be a group, come forward, that'll say, wait a second, we can spend on the roads as we've been and add where we need, but we can also do parks and recreation and do it well. So.
Yeah, I said in the meeting, I've said many times that $500,000, it's $15 a person in Wildwood per year. That's what we pay for all our gorgeous parks. And if you only go and enjoy them once, that's kind of what the admission you would pay to enjoy, Rock Hollow or, the Zombie Road and all those kinds of things. And so I think it's a tragedy that that we're so short-sighted that we don't want to spend that kind of money.
And I think so too. And I just think that instead of, well, maybe looking at the same time, because I wasn't in that meeting, of course, so I don't know all of their thoughts. But in addition to that moratorium, maybe look at more closely, how can we raise the budget for parks and trails instead of let's stop doing it so that we have this money. And this we should bring up in the goals and objectives, I think, is how do we push bringing that sales tax back on the ballot?
Exactly. And it's weaved through all of the components of this particular element. There needs to be a dedicated funding source. And we'll get to that as we move forward. So I've editorialized right on your all shoulders, so I apologize.
No, thank you for bringing that up.
It's important. Parks are what makes Wildwood Wild.
Yeah.
They just are for $15 a person.
So why then was I the only one that said no? Everybody else on council said yes. Don't answer. You don't have to answer.
Well,
that.
I
just
probably,
before-
I thought the meeting was at 6:30 and it was at 5:30 and I must have walked in late because it was a fait accompli by the time I got there. Otherwise, I would have been screaming bloody murder, and you know this as well as anybody, because you're in there listening to me rant about the short shrift that we give our park system anyway, so. I would have been with you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Are you gonna go through each one of these? Cause I have notes on one. Okay, sorry.
All right, so we have 3 goals. The first goal is Wildwood Parks and Recreation Facilities should improve the quality of life within the city, enhance property values, promote a sense of community, welcome and engage residents and the visiting public. The department is recommending that we add and offer inclusive access to all ages and abilities.
Where are we?
Goal
Sorry.
1.
Number one.
Okay.
Sorry, jumped right in.
No, I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry.
And again, as you know, next to our Oval and Village Green Phase 1, we are in the process of developing the engineered plans to begin building an all-inclusive playground here in Wildwood. The goal recognizes the benefits of parks and trail corridors by adding vibrancy to the community. In the case of Wildwood, that become an economic development tool as well.
I think your commentary is very good and more it explains things even better, using the word vibrancy and economic development tool. I would add those into the goal, as well as maybe add somewhere in there physical fitness, that it enhances or it encourages physical fitness of the community. Because a few years ago,
Physical and mental well-being.
physical and mental well-being, maybe, yeah. Because a few years ago, a reporter had called me and we worked through, why is it that Wildwood has such a longevity? Remember that?
Yeah.
That article? So he had called me and we talked about it a long time and we tried to think of why was it? Because we rate very high in longevity in Wildwood for some reason. And I think mental would be a really good thing to put in it.
I also would attribute it to that it's a more quiet environment than most. There's less lighting all day, every night, all night. Those things, I believe, are stressors to one's physical health.
Lack of fast food places, we don't have.
Lack of rest.
To change it.
Change it then. Yeah.
So the department's recommendation on this one is retain and revise as noted. The department added the inclusiveness of the facilities. I think I would like, if there's no objection on the group's part, to add the vibrancy, economic development, and the physical and mental well-being as part of the goal. Number 2 goal, Wildwood facilities and park and recreation programs should meet residents' needs and preferences with prudent fiscal constraints set forth by the city council and described in the adopted strategic plan and 5-year capital improvement plans for the same. Again, I think it's important that we understand that there are guiding tools in terms of what we do, not only what the residents prefer and need, but also what we can afford. So that's why that addition is part of what we're recommending here. Goal 3, Wildwood should have permanent funding sources for its park and recreation facilities and programs and their maintenance. And as part of the description, a group of residents in 2007 thought it was well timed to basically put forward Wildwood residents, voters, the Parks and Stormwater Sales Tax, which is enabled under state legislation. And if you're wondering, out of the 88 municipalities in St. Louis County, there are 3 that do not have it. Wildwood is one, and the 2 others are in North County in the inner ring suburbs next to North St. Louis. So
the question is, we should have it. What are the action items to get it?
well,
It
that's a good
says
question.
someplace in here that it's already in the works. Is that, did I just read that somewhere?
Pardon, ma'am?
The tax again? Is it, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I apologize, I just didn't hear you.
It's okay, go ahead.
Well, it went to the vote in 2008. It was also it was a national election. We had consulted with experts and said the more voters you have in an election, typically that's favorable to parks and recreation. It was a national election. It was the first time, I believe, Barack Obama was on the ballot. But also, besides ours, there were 6 other tax increases on the ballot that year. So by the time you worked through the 6 and got the number 7, that was us. And 11,000 people opposed it, 10,000 supported it and failed polls. And since that time, we've had 2 volunteer groups, the Citizens Committee on Parks Plan Update, and then our Watershed Erosion Task Force. Both say that we should take the sales tax issue to the voters. It's not yet made it, but it's a goal.
Now, we say we should. what are we gonna do how would we make that happen? And should we put that in writing? Is it by having
I
another
think we should
election?
retain it as a goal, maybe to change the commentary.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it
What's the
like a
deliverable?
percentage of the sales tax? Like a 1/4% or something like that?
I believe it can be up to a half cent. I think Tom Lee, our city administrator, has done a calculation and like at a half cent, it'll generate like 2 million or so. So,
On a half cent?
so it would be a very welcome revenue source. We're looking at our revenue sources flattening, if not decreasing in some instances.
Problem we're gonna run into funding with sales taxes. The state of Missouri is talking about using that in lieu of income tax. All the fire districts in St. Louis County are gonna have a proposition on the ballot for a 1% sales tax in April. So it's, and it's kind of like people aren't standing in the lanes, but that's here and there. But it's,
I think that the goal is that it's up here, right? We should have permanent funding and then
Right.
let's stay up here and then go, yeah.
As we go through the objectives and policies, we'll get to that action item that says we should take it to the voters. It doesn't give details on when, where, how, but it certainly says it's an issue that if it is, if we get at the polls, we ought to at least ask.
I agree.
I think Deborah was.
So, but when, if and when the city does a tax, it should just be a parks tax and not what was we calling it, erosion and
Parks and
parks. We
stuff.
should just do one at a time, I think, and not lump them together. That's,
Yeah.
I think they are married under the state legislation. So,
well, they are.
and there's always been, there's been, in 2008, we actually talked about, one year we spend some on, parks, 1 year we spend it on stormwater.
that's right.
erosion.
Yeah.
Doing something like that, or doing it in sequences so that we're basically touching as many of the bases as we can. Yes, ma'am.
So in addition to our goals, can we, I don't know how, if this works or not from this committee, can we refer this back to P and Z or the council or whoever is going to be the next in line to look at this, just so we can get on their agenda?
P and Z, all 8 citizen members are part of this group. P and Z will adopt the plan under state statute. They adopt it, not the city council.
Okay.
It goes on to city council for endorsement and ratification.
So can I make a motion, can I move to refer that to P and Z?
Refer what? I'm sorry.
Refer, discussing again
During the
the
tax.
sales tax.
Well, P and Z, we don't have anything to do with the taxes.
Sales tax.
Right.
This
plan.
oversight, this 10-year plan comes to us is what he's
It would
saying.
be a plan.
Yeah, we get this, whatever gets done here comes to the P and Z and the P and Z.
Yeah, we put it in here.
Right, well.
P and Z doesn't
I
vote
guess
on
I'm thinking-
taxes.
Well, you'll vote on the master plan, which
Right.
contains hopefully a gold objective and policy that takes us through that process to get a question to the voters. I think that's what Ms. Clark is advocating.
Right, and I just want to make sure that we're focusing on this sales tax too, so will that focus on the sales tax, you just said?
If we put it in as a goal,
Goal.
Couldn't that be an objective of the goal?
well, I'm just saying, it already exists as a goal, just some
Right.
commentary that says we introduced.
Yeah, I agree with what Deb said, and what Teresa said. Is there a way to, if we're gonna take this forward with a request for a half-cent sales tax, the constraint of it's gotta be stormwater and parks, that means all the money for parks is gonna go to stormwater because we need $30 million to fix our stormwater problems. And so is there a way to codify in this master plan that any new tax increase for parks would have at least a certain percentage allocated to parks specifically so that it doesn't, so that it's already, in our plan instead of just having to hash it out separately? Is that a reasonable suggestion or is that stupid?
Well, I think any suggestion is not stupid. Any suggestion is reasonable and should be studied. So what I'll say is that I'll talk with Mr. Lee and others and we'll see if there's an allocation component that we can add to either the objective or policy. I wouldn't necessarily put it in a goal that's very specific, but I think we may be able to do something, or it ends up in the narrative. You know, this was the, let's say, hot button issue of the group, that we need a funding source for parks and recreation.
That covers parks, that at some portion of it goes to parks and always will. So, okay.
What's the likelihood of a per capita of a fixed budget for parks based on population? X dollars per person.
Well, we kind of do that already because parks maintenance is funded out of the operating revenue, and the operating revenue is primarily sales tax, and sales tax, since we're a pooled city, is done on a per capita basis. Improvements are through capital improvement program, which is a sales tax, which is per capita. So we kind of do that all.
So once we get out of the goals and we get down to the more specific part, which is what we're talking about, kind of piggybacking on Teresa and Rob, what about doing as we do with the roads, have a 5-year strategic plan so that we're not necessarily saying you have to spend X on parks and X on stormwater, but we have a plan so that we can see what we need going forward in a 5-year strategic plan to make sure that everybody gets their piece. But so when we get down to that point, maybe, I don't know if that would be something that we could do.
Certainly, as we work from the top of the funnel down to the smallest part, we can start refining the, yes, here, we want a dedicated revenue source for parks, recreation, and trails, and their maintenance. We want, how to do this is the state-enabled legislation for parks and stormwater. Then when we get to the policy, we may say,
So could I make a motion that we at least accept the goals right now? Just because we're on.
been through 3 of them,
Okay.
that's the totality of the goals. I didn't add any new ones. And maybe some in the room that want something else added to the goals relative to this element.
Is it appropriate to, I agree, is it appropriate to somehow say that I believe the stormwater stuff is gonna be so massive that we're gonna have to have some sort of a bond issue or something like that to pay for $30 million worth of drainage work or $20 million or whatever the number is today. And I'm really trying to separate the park budget because the park budget is minuscule in comparison. Can we get that specific, or does that make any sense to do that?
I think you can get as specific as you want. And as we work through the final documents, you'll see if it fits or not. But I think right now, as we go through this element, the goal objective, I don't want to take anything off the board. Let's be specific and see where it goes.
Sure, okay, the goal is to get some funding for parks and then, cover the.
Well,
That's there.
it split the one.
Is that the result?
That's your,
Mechanism, so.
Yeah, my
Right.
question
We
is,
don't wanna act.
I see this as a framework. And we have goals. Now, is there anywhere, and then this is the thing we live by for 10 years that the city gets. Is there anywhere in here where we can say you shall do something? Shall and a goal are 2 different things.
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah.
I've not seen anything in here where we've said City of Wildwood shall do this. You shall take this to the voters. And you shall do this within a 3-year period after we adopt.
That's not a goal, though. That would be.
That's a telling someone
Right.
that we will do that, right? And I don't think this is document, we had this argument.
Yeah.
The discussion, not argument, the discussion about, well, we're putting it as a goal, but it's still up to the city council at the end of the day.
Right.
We don't do that unless there's some place where there's some shalls in here, and I'm not seeing it yet, so. Just saying, we can't, we're setting goals. This is what you ought to consider doing.
Or you should say our goal is.
The goal's the goal, right? We're
Well,
fine.
no, but I was trying to put shall in there.
We can't shall. This is not, this is an ought to, this is an ought to guidance. This is what we ought to do as a guidance.
We can't.
There is no shall
Yeah.
at the end of the day. But if you stray from this, you went away from the 10-year plan, so it's a framework document.
Exactly.
Are there any more goals? Anybody want to add? Teresa's been waiting patiently.
Well, I just was thinking about all of the other elements and how the goals were set up and that it just seemed like we were missing a few things compared to those. Maybe something about the goal of safety for staff and participants. I didn't see anything about safety in our goals. And open spaces and, well, not just people, but plants and habitat and the animal habitat. And preventative and remediation maintenance wasn't listed here. And I was wondering if we could sort of get around the moratorium by saying, one of the goals is to improve connectivity of the trail system.
All of those things that you're mentioning are in objectives.
Yeah, they are.
They are
2 and
all in
3,
objectives.
Yeah,
Yep.
Well,
they need to be strengthened. I
we
think.
need to have a goal for it so that we can work on it with objective.
Yeah, I think a couple of general statements. If you're a big omission, I think on that part, not to have something relative to a goal relating to the safety of our facilities. I think that's critical. And certainly the others that were mentioned, habitat remediation, maintenance and improved connectivity. Let's see what I can do, but we do have things in the goal objectives and policies that maybe as we go through those, we can refine those statements Ms. Clark made relative to the goals.
Right, the chart at the end, Teresa, just because I had asked for this before, was the chart at the end shows that where they think that the objectives,
Yes, I know that.
yeah.
It's still out
Yeah.
on the table.
Mhm.
Is there any, we've got suggestions from Ms. Clark, or are there any other goals that Sheila are?
Could you just put the word safety in the first goal, add that in with the other stuff, right? Would that be adequate?
I can certainly look at it, sir, because we talk about, there is a list here, quality of life, enhanced property values, sense of community, engagement of residents, the public.
Here, wildwoods, parks and recreation facilities should safely improve the quality. I mean,
Well, I'll start putting it there. We'll take a look at it.
Deborah?
So. You bring up recreation under policies, but I'm wondering, I think you know where I'm going. I'm wondering, can we have a goal that says to establish a recreation center? Or do we have to wait till we get policies?
Well, I think we've not talked about, we talk about Wildwoods Park and Recreation Facility should improve. So we're not saying new. Then the second goal is Wildwood should meet residents' needs and preferences. I think it could fit in there.
Okay.
So that's a whopper.
Is
Let me see what I can do with it.
Is there a way to say improve the successfully isn't the word, but improve the enactment of policies by what's the word? Separating the 2 budget items for parks and storm drainage. So you can focus on one and focus on the other versus focusing on both.
I think what has been kind of alluded to is maybe that gets more into an objective or policy. You want a revenue source goal, you have an objective, the legislation that's exists. The policy should be maybe for the first 10 years of its application, allocation should be more toward parks, not stormwater, or something akin to that.
Or can you split the budget so that you're, like Rob said, you got a $30 million budget. And it all goes to storm drainage because we had a major problem versus 5 for parks and 25 for storm drain.
I don't think that'll pass. I mean, you'll have 1 year where something bad happens, like Strecker
You got
falls into Cox Creek and they'll say no.
No, sir.
I'm just, when I Googled the stormwater thing, it came up that apparently Administration of Public Works discussed this back in July and September. There was a information provided about what it would take to put something on the ballot regarding this and what it would generate. And what became of that, do we know?
I think they basically tabled the idea for the mall.
City council.
So as recent as last September,
Yeah,
it
what's
was
been
brought up and a paper was generated, I'm assuming by staff or Rick, okay. Yeah, this would kind of transcend both departments, wouldn't it?
Yes.
It does, and there's been some recent discussion about it. Wouldn't say it's dead, but certainly I think there's some reluctance. I don't want to speak for our elected officials, but.
So the mechanics of that would be, one of those committees would have to say, we support it, and then from there it would go to this P and Z, you have to approve it. Ballot issue?
Context of the master plan update, yes. If it's out of the Administration Public Works Committee, a city council, or Planning Parks Committee out of the city council, no.
Okay.
It can
So
go
this-
straight to council.
if somehow this would resurface, are you guys on either of those committees?
Which one?
This was Administrative Public Works.
No, I'm not on that one, but I think part of the discussion was we didn't feel like a tax would pass at this point in time, and the city is sitting on reserve funds. And so that combined with then going back and asking for additional money for tax purposes at this point, we didn't think it would be passed. So we kind of put it on hold. Is that right, Joe?
Yes, ma'am. The reserve component is kind of the gorilla in the room.
Yeah. I just want to throw this out here. So we sent the survey out to residents. The top 2 things that the residents asked for, because I went down and counted them up, was a recreation center, and the other one was lower density. And that was the 2 that pretty much, that was the responses pretty much. But, out of we had what, 780? Yeah, it was like 600 and something, 700 and something for those 2 categories. So.
And what you've done in the planning element is retained, again, a minimum 1 unit per acre in the suburban. And as I mentioned, in the suburban residential area, there's only about 3 vacant properties left. And then in the non-urban, we have adamantly stated 1 unit for every 3 acres as a density. So town center is the one that seems to draw the attention, and Mayor Garitano does a wonderful job of saying, folks, that's 800 acres of 68 square miles. It is our downtown, so to speak. But certainly when we went in the planning element, we talked a great deal about the density. So I think we've covered that, and we'll look at the recreation center. Other goals, I've got a few that have been suggested. We'll put them through the 5 of us here, and we'll see what we come up with and bring them back to you. Moving on to objectives. Objective 1, regional parks located within the city should be protected from adverse environmental consequences created by roadways, highways, and new developments located adjacent to or upstream from these publicly held properties. Remember, this isn't a knock against public works. This is in the context of 1996 and the outer belt discussion that was being bantered about by the state of Missouri and others. So the department says this complements the environmental element where we talk about protection of public lands. And so the department is recommending it be retained.
Came up in planning and zoning on something, so yes.
Yeah, very much.
And you're looking at it holistically instead of separately, which you should.
Objective 2, the connection of Babbler State Park, Rockwoods Reservation and Range and Greensfelder County Park should be encouraged as part of a larger regional park system, while focusing on plans and actions to make further links to the Ozark and Katy trails. So
You could somehow connect Babbler to Greenfielder, like just go past by Hidden Valley and go on that ridge and.
Actually,
There is a trail.
from the southern end of Babbler State Park on Rieger Road, we have a 90-foot wide dedicated park corridor that goes through Homestead Estates. It ends just shy of Route 100. There's two intervening properties. And then we have an easement across a portion of Mueller Road to Old Manchester Road. And at that location, Rockwoods Reservation is there. And if we can get into Rockwoods Reservation, there's Glencoe Road, there's their system. And then Public Works and Planning did the tunnel under Route 109, the trail, Hamilton Car Greenway, to Old State Road, and then the tunnel under Old State Road to Glencoe, and then Glencoe to the river. So, and Mr. Newberry, tell them about the Western Greenway real quickly.
The department's been working with Missouri State Parks and Great Rivers Greenway, the regional trail district, to plan a alignment of trail from the north end of Babbler Park at Wild Horse Creek Road all the way down to the Rieger Road crossing that Mr. Furnish just mentioned. And they've come up with they're pretty far along on an alignment there.
Ms. Keefe has been part of that to make sure our historic preservation components, particularly our, is it the
United States Colored Troops Historic Marker is going to be a key feature.
Did they
in it.
ever find a spot for it?
Yes, we did identify a spot and it's included as part of this Western Greenway.
Yeah, so Ms. Keefe and Mr. Newberry have been working with state parks and GRG on that. So the idea then is somehow, some way to get from the north end of Babbler State Park onto Centaur Road to the LeCay Memorial Trailhead to the Levee Trail, then across the river and onto the Katy Trail. And so there is a grandiose plan out there, and we're all in our 20s, we may see it come to fruition, but some of us. I hope you all do get to see it. Yes,
Do we have a link to the map, the trail map at that point?
I don't know if it's public yet. They're getting ready to start public engagement. I'll get an update tomorrow on that. So they may have some exhibits that they're willing to provide. It's not a city project per se. They've invited us to be a partner. So if they have something that they're ready to share with the public.
And I'm more speaking of the trail map that we have now.
Oh, the
will
overall
link
trail
to
map.
this
Yeah.
object.
Ms. Ripito.
Yeah, we have trail maps. There's actually one behind you that says Parks and Trails on it that does have the trails on it. So yeah, we can provide that also.
Just link.
Uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely.
So linkages. The Ozark Trail, as I recall, is like 200 miles. It takes you to Northwest Arkansas. If you want to go there, shop at Walmart. Objective 3, protection of the diversity and health of vegetative and wildlife species within Wildwood should be supported and adopted for application. So again, this is more on not the recreation side, but the open space side. Department believes that's consistent. We heard that as one of the potential gold additions from Ms. Clark today, just ensuring that we take care of our wildlife and the habitat that supports it, as well as the fauna and flora in our parks and trail corridors.
What about invasive species of honeysuckle and stuff like that?
I'm for it. I was hoping that at this point, we could add something in about encouraging the planting of native plants and vegetation. Thank you. Would that fit there?
How does that play with our deer management program?
We don't have a deer management program.
We don't have one.
You don't have it.
It's a cost.
Well, don't count it out yet. The
Okay,
new
we got
fighter's
ways.
been down for the 9 pounds and gotten up in one, so
You got ways.
I'm counting on Mr. Brown and Mr. Lee.
Don't bet against it, and don't bet against Indiana.
Right.
I'm glad they
be.
So invasives, natives, in terms of our programming, both in public and private public spaces. The next one, funding mechanisms, along with conservation easements, development incentives, and donation opportunities for acquisition of properties and facilities to address the park and recreation needs of the city of Wildwood should be defined, established, created, and maintained. This was added in 2006. So as you can see, we transitioned from, don't worry about it, we'll not have any parks, to 10 years later, but let's get after it, folks. So. Department is recommending that be retained. Although the funding component is always a sticky wicket, so to speak, certainly conservation easements with private property owners, something the Open Space Council advocates for and has been successful at. Incentives, development incentives, that's our public space regulations. And then finally, donation opportunities, which we're working on one now, if you didn't know, on Ridge Road. It's an 80-acre tract of land that's contiguous to the Rock Hollow Valley. The Open Space Council, St. Louis County, and the city of Wildwood are working collaboratively to obtain a grant, and then there is a private donor that will pay the difference in the cost. So great opportunity, and probably in terms of a site, it's probably one of the more beautiful ones in all, something special. Objective 5, partnerships with federal, state, and local park and recreation agencies, other municipalities, and public and private not-for-profit groups. Those objectives of this effort and regional action that there should be promoted, established, retained. We'd like to make mention that Ms. Keefe has been very, very successful with a lot of our historic preservation grants of late. And again, I see that as an opportunity. Why don't you just give a brief one about up on the levee trail?
Yes, we're working to do a kickoff engagement for an African American Heritage Trail project sometime in the fall of this year. And so we've been very successful. We've achieved one national level designation of our Missouri River Escape crossing site at House Ferry up on the Levee Trail. That's a site where 16 men actually escaped over the river, including Archer Alexander, who is a nationally known figure. He's on the Lincoln, his image is on the Lincoln Memorial. He informed on Confederate troops. They had a plan to blow up a Union bridge. So he was a very important figure in the Civil War effort. So that was recently designated by the National Park Service as on the Network to Freedom. And so we have a lot of history up there that we'd like to highlight, including our historic Westland Acres community, including our United States Colored Troops. And through this Historic Preservation Fund grant, we hope to achieve maybe 60% funding of a plan for that effort as well.
So very, very successful. And anytime we bring attention to our history, and it complements our parks, recreation, trails, et cetera, a double win. So I congratulate Ms. Keefe and our HPC, the Historic Preservation Commission, for their efforts. The final objective is a new one.
Question about
Sure.
number 5. I know previously or at one time, wasn't there a partnership with Ellisville regarding utilizing the water park facilities? Does that still exist, or are we attempted to do, example, Ballins Golf Course, Ballins Rec Center? Is there some effort or consideration for cooperative agreements with other municipalities that have some facilities? Did somehow our residents get resident rates? And I'm just, is anything?
For many, many years, we had relationships with Baldwin and Ellisville for the swim, for their pools during the swim season, the summer. Basically what it did is our residents got Ellisville or Baldwin resident rates, and then we paid the difference between a non-resident and resident. That was removed from the budget this year.
Okay. So.
The, so it's not for profit only groups? What about like the location for the pickleball court from a for-profit, the Greenberg? So wouldn't it also be for-profit and not for-profit?
Yeah, I think I could certainly say for profit or, again, that's to me a more of a developer component. So yeah, we'll figure something out to capture that. And the last item, the connection of Al Foster Trail from its current terminus to Route 66 should be pursued through all options available, which is a link to from the city of Wildwood to Ozark Trail via Shaw's Arboretum. Hopefully we'll get there before the data centers. So this is a little controversial because there's 13 property owners from Marinus Retreat Center to this northern boundary of the city of Eureka. That generally have refused to grant easements or even consider any type of trail system on the existing rail bed, where Missouri American Water Company recently placed a water main for the city of Eureka. So there's going to be some people that don't like this one, but it's been a gold since the 1970s when Governor Kit Bond established the Merrimack River Association. So I'm sticking with Kit.
Stop with this right now.
So that's all of the objectives. We're at 8:27. I'll defer to the chair and vice chair. I think this might be a good conclusion point, is right?
Can I make a motion that we accept everything we've done so far so that we don't lose it?
Certainly, and then as others, you'll get revised wording and it'll be highlighted so you can see that hopefully us, the five of us, have captured what you want. But if you're satisfied with the list, certainly a motion could be.
How about a motion to put it in your hands? Or do we not even need a motion? We can just continue on the next meeting.
Made the progress, let's ratify it, yeah, but
Okay.
second your motion.
Thank you.
We got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Our discussion.
For a suggestion for one new objective is something to do with the safety of the facilities and services for participants and for staff. For example, those blue light emergency towers.
Okay, I'm not against those, but I have a question about those. If we do that, how do we put those in places where it's out in nature and we don't have electricity and stuff to it?
Solar.
Am I, you know what I mean?
The call boxes.
Yeah.
When you're walking by yourself.
And you're scared someone's gonna,
Push a button and.
oh, I know exactly what it is. That's a smart city thing. It's all smart city where around, they say.
Okay, that's an example.
Yeah, campuses.
As well as another example of like the sirens go off for weather. You can implement lights that stream across the sky, can be seen from quite a ways away for deaf and hard of hearing.
And this is again, a more reflexive approach to how we basically communicate with people, both in day-to-day use of the park and the emergency situations.
Travis, do we have any exterior comments?
No one is in attendance via Zoom that's not on the group.
Did we get a vote on that motion?
No, we didn't vote on it. We have a motion and a second.
No, he said aye.
No, we-
We eyed it.
Okay, because we kind of ran it through before she
No,
discussed
eyed
it.
it.
Yeah, we did.
Just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
The favorite
Next
motion of the
meeting
night.
date, Wednesday, January 28th. We'll be here.
Throw the fucking meeting.
What's that? Okay. Now, how about a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
The crowd
Be careful out there this
You're
week.
On Zoom.
We'll have to leave